opposed to aging.
As opposed to aging.
Well, it's interesting because you talked you talked a little bit about sort of other people's perception of you, and you had a story about on a beach that I'd love you to tell.
I was in France when I was in my early 30s, and I was on a beach in Cannes, and it was the first topless beach I'd ever been on, actually. And I'm walking along the sand. Well, it's not sand, it's kind of pebbly. But there was a woman, probably late 50s, early 60s, who was topless, and she'd had a double mastectomy. And she had friends around her. She was very animated and laughing. She had what looked like family as well. There were small children. And everyone seemed to be having such a good time. And I thought to myself, that's the way I want to be when I grow up. I want to concentrate on the internal and not the external. That looks fade, but laughter and learning can go on forever. So that was another learning process.
Right.
You know.
Well, you had obviously some very incredible role models and experiences that kept you in good stead for growing up. You were even saying that you grew up in a multi-generational house.
Yes, yes, and you never knew who was going to come in or out of it. There was always an aunt who had had a fight with her husband and arrived on the doorstep with her 2 children, or there was an uncle who perhaps had an accident or was passing through and needed to stay with us for a couple of months. There were this great aunt who I loved. She had a little restaurant, and her pet was a cockatoo. And this cockatoo had this particular disease which caused him to pluck out all his feathers and walk around the restaurant stark naked, except for the comb on the top of his head. And of course all the men in the restaurant used to teach him swear phrases, you know, swearing. Actually, not quite so much swearing, but New Zealand colloquialisms, you know. And so that she would have this parrot walking around with stark naked and saying horrible things, and everyone used to love coming into the restaurant because of this parrot. I mean, I had all these rich characters coming in and out of my life. My mother was divorced in an age when no one got divorced. Right. She made a life for herself and ended up owning 3 boutiques. My stepfather had to leave school at 14 because it was depression, and he ended up being a master builder. And also, I was just at Saratoga where his horses used to run. Saratoga, New York.
Right.
One of my father's friends willed a horse to my youngest sister, a broodmare, and my father took it on as a hobby and started breeding his own pacing horses.
Interesting.
And this is a man who left school when he was 14 years old. I never knew people that said, I can't do it. My grandmother and grandfather arrived from Ireland to New Zealand. He was a mill owner in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, and he ended up working in the gold mines. So I didn't know people who had limits.
That's interesting. So, but there was never anything that you thought was a limit to yourself?
No, not at all. Yeah, and I was a child of divorce. When I was 18 years old, I was diagnosed with a cyst the size of an egg in my eye socket.
Wow.
It was removed by a husband and wife team who were ophthalmic plastic surgeons, and I never thought that would stop me from doing anything. I did musical comedy. I swam with the water ballet team when I got here, a synchronized swimming team. I married, traveled all over the world. It didn't stop me.
Is there anything that you haven't done yet that you'd still like to do?
Oh yes, I've got a
list.
Yeah, a before you die list this long. I would like to go to Kathmandu. I would like to travel to Peru and do the Carlos Castaneda experience. I would like to go to Greece, because I haven't been to Greece yet. And I would like to go to China. And I would like to see my grandchildren get married.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
And have successful lives.